What is going on, guys? It's ThePowerBauer 2 here, and if you are excited for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, raise your hand. If you just raised your hand, congrats, you now look like a weirdo for holding up your hand to your computer screen, but I appreciate the participation. Last week, the Final Smash Direct revealed the final fighters for the base roster of Smash Bros. Ultimate with Ken from Street Fighter, Incineroar, and the free download of Piranha Plant. Weird flex, Sakurai, but okay. We currently have 70 unique fighters along with all of the Echo Fighters, but as Sakurai said, why stop there? 5 DLC packages have already been announced and are said to be released all the way through February of 2020. Yeah, it's gonna be a while before all these are released, but I think that just makes the anticipation even greater. Especially because Sakurai recently tweeted out that all the DLC fighters are already decided upon. I think that's really cool, and I can't wait to see what DLC fighters he actually chooses to put in the game. But what I think is even funnier is the fact that literally right after that he tweeted again and basically just told all the fans to f*** off with all their unrealistic requests. Each of the new DLC fighters is said to be developed from scratch, which means there will likely be no Echo Fighters, or at the very least, very few of them. Since we're going to be getting 5 DLC packages, I'm going to be covering the 5 characters that I want to see most in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as DLC. And I'm also going to tell you why they would be likely to be added to the game based on fan requests, what they would even add to the game, or even if it's feasibly possible for them to be added. And then I'll end by going through a few honorable mentions who I still think have a pretty good chance to be DLC, but just not as good as the previous 5. I won't be considering any characters who are already in the game as assist trophies because technically they're already fightable and we're just never going to see that transition. Sorry to everybody who wants either Shadow or Isaac as fighters, but I'm just being realistic. Now with all of that out of the way, let's look at the most wanted DLC fighters for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. One fighter who has been at the top or near the top of Smash polls for years now is Geno from Super Mario RPG. It says a lot when you have literally only been playable in one game, but you still have such a huge fan base. Especially when that game came out over 22 years ago. He could have such an amazing moveset based around all the different spells he uses in Geno Beam, Geno Boost, Geno Whirl, Geno Blast, and Geno Flash. Very creative names, but that doesn't take away from how cool or creative he would be as a fighter. I can also imagine a Forest Maze stage in the same DLC package, which just, yes, I need that. People will always bring up the fact that he is owned by Square Enix, and yes, I will acknowledge that. But that literally doesn't mean shit. Cloud is owned by Square Enix and he's in Smash Bros. That argument honestly isn't very good. Geno also had a Mii Fighter costume in Smash 4, and we've seen characters like King K. Rool go from having a Mii Fighter costume in that game to now an actual fighter in Smash Ultimate. And one final point, Geno is literally a doll that comes to life. And what was the basis for the first Smash Bros. Game? Dolls that came to life and fought each other. It's just too perfect! If we were going to get another Kirby character, it would have to be none other than Bandana Waddle Dee. Before you type in the comments that he's a spirit in the game already, so that means he can't be a fighter, just stop. First off, you'd also have to use that argument for Geno, and second off, that basically just means he's a trophy in this game, which hasn't stopped a character from being DLC before. Lucas was a trophy in Smash 4 before he was added as DLC, so you can't use that argument. Bandana Waddle Dee would also add a whole new type of fighter to the game with his spear. We have tons of swordsmen with Link, Meta Knight, and the 50,000 f***ing Fire Emblem characters, but we have no spearmen. And since it seems like Sakurai makes Kirby the focal point of every story mode and the savior of the world, I almost expect him to add another Kirby character at this point. I mean, Kirby is like his child, and he's just going to cater to him as much as he possibly can. Now, I have definitely had a turnaround on this next character. I originally thought that he wouldn't make sense to be added and he kind of would just be a waste of a new fighter, but after actually thinking about it, I realized I'm an idiot and Paper Mario deserves to be in Smash. My reasoning for not including him was because he would just be a third Mario and that we don't need a third one. But really thinking about it, that really doesn't make too much sense. We already have 3 Links who, yes, are a little different, but they are basically the same damn character. I was afraid that Paper Mario would just be another Mario like Dr. Mario currently is, and god, that was a lot of Marios in one sentence. But thinking about it, his moveset really wouldn't even be comparable to normal Mario. If they give him his hammer, his jump attacks, and maybe even some of his transformations from Thousand Year Door, it wouldn't even be close. I don't know which game they would want to create a stage out of for him, but I would personally choose either Rogueport or Toad Town. As long as there are no references to Sticker Star, I support this decision. Seriously though, no stickers, Sakurai. I first thought that Shadow would be an Echo Fighter for Sonic as many others did, and yeah, we saw how that worked out. Sonic is still one of the most recognizable and iconic video game characters of all time, and he seems likely to receive a second fighter from his games. We know it can't be Shadow or Knuckles because they are already assist trophies in the game, and that pretty much only leaves 2 real candidates. Tails or Eggman. I'll just cut to the chase. It's not Daddy Longlegs over here. Tails is Sonic's best friend, and he's been around since Sonic 2, so he's one of the first characters too. Sure, some of his attacks might be similar to Sonic's with the spin dashes, but they could add so much more with his inventions and obviously his tails. He also had a Mii Fighter costume in Smash 4, just like Geno did. To be fair, so did Knuckles, but let's just ignore that. I also chose Tails over Eggman for the simple fact that I just don't want Eggman in Smash. My least favorite character in the game is currently Bowser Jr. It's not because I don't think he deserves to be in, but because he's in that fucking Koopa clown car. Why they did that, I have no idea, and I'm afraid they do the same thing to Eggman. Tails probably is the least likely of these 5 characters that I'm talking about, but I still think he deserves to be in Smash. And lastly, we have the character that I'm sure you all were waiting for. From the greatest Nintendo 64 game of all time and... don't look at that! Banjo-Kazooie is the one character that needs to be added as DLC. Being considered since Melee, they're one of the few characters who has garnered fan requests for years on end. I feel like by adding Duck Hunt, Sakurai kinda blueballed this without ever finishing us off. Don't take that out of context. I mean, think about it. They're both an animal paired with a bird. They're a lot more similar than you originally think. Sure, that might be their only similarity, but let's ignore that. Pretty much every move for Duck Hunt had to be created specifically for Smash. While Banjo-Kazooie have 3, scratch that, 2 games of different actions that could be used to create their moveset. And nobody ever even wanted Duck Hunt in the first place, while pretty much everybody wants Banjo and Kazooie. The one big issue for them is that they are owned by Rare, who is owned by Microsoft. I will admit this is a much different situation than Geno being owned by Square Enix, and it is much more difficult for them to obtain the rights to have them in their game. But there is still hope because Nintendo and Microsoft aren't really quote-unquote competitors. Sony is Microsoft's real competitor when it comes to gaming, and they have sort of built a friendship with Nintendo. We already have cross-platform play for Minecraft, and I expect more games to come in the future. Everyone associates Banjo-Kazooie with Nintendo, and it's about time that they make their return to a Nintendo console with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Oh yeah, and we need to have either a Spiral Mountain or a Grunty's Lair stage. Now those are what I believe to be 5 of the most likely possible characters to be added as DLC in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but that is far from the only characters with any chance. I'm quickly going to go over a few honorable mentions who I still think have a good chance, but just not as good a chance as those first 5 that I mentioned. Dixie Kong would make perfect sense as a new fighter, or maybe even an Echo Fighter for Diddy, but I don't really see that happening. She could bring a lot to the table with her unique fighting style using her hair, which I would just love immensely. But because we already got a new Donkey Kong character in King K. Rool, I'm not too sure if they want to add another. You could make the argument that they added 2 new Metroid characters, so why not 2 new Donkey Kong characters, but I'm assuming that's for the Metroid Prime 4 coming out either next year or the year after that. Dixie Kong is still definitely a possibility, and I really would like to see her in the game. Just because she didn't end up as an assist trophy in this game, I will give Shantae an honorable mention because of just how much fan popularity she has had recently. I don't really think she's going to be a DLC fighter, but I'm still going to give her at least a chance because of how popular she's been. That being said though, I really don't think she deserves to be in the top 5, but like I said, I'll just give her an honorable mention to hopefully make you guys happy. We have been told that Minecraft will have some sort of representation in Smash, and maybe I'm blind, but I haven't really seen anything about it yet. So I'm going to say Steve has a chance to be a DLC fighter, but I wouldn't bet my money on it. I personally just don't think he's unique enough. I mean, his name is f***ing Steve for God's sake. I'm also going to throw in Toon Zelda just for the simple fact that she was considered for Brawl. But of all these honorable mentions, she's definitely the least likely. I still would love to see her added though. And lastly, I'll say Crash Bandicoot has a chance. The Insane Trilogy was released on the Switch, and if Cloud made it in the Smash, then Crash definitely has a chance. There are so many different characters that I could talk about that I could probably drag this video on for like an hour, but I just only want to cover the main ones that I think have the best chance. Sakurai is clearly aiming this game at the fans. I mean, we've seen that with Ridley and King K. Rool being added. But at the end of the day, we can't go too far. I'm not going to be one of those guys who sits here and says that Sans should be in Smash. Seriously, get out of here with that shit. You have to be a realist when it comes to these newcomers, but at the same time, you kind of have to expect the unexpected. Just remember that no matter what character you want added as DLC, Piranha Plant was chosen over it for the base roster. A f***ing potted plant. Sakurai, I love you.